The house stood alone, a silhouette against the darkening sky. It had always been there. Local legend whispered of its wickedness. Stories passed down through generations. Stories of tragedy, of malice, of death. No one dared speak its name, not in daylight, not in the dark. It stood as a monument to suffering, a testament to unspeakable horrors. The house held secrets, dark and terrible secrets. Some say the land itself was cursed, others blamed the architect. He poured his madness into the foundation, infused the very stones with hate. Whatever the truth, the house remained, a spectre in the gloaming, waiting. The Blackwood family, oblivious to the whispers, purchased the estate. A young couple full of hope, blinded by the beauty of the architecture. They saw opportunity in the decay, a chance to build a life. Foolish dreamers, they were walking into a nightmare. Daniel Blackwood, a writer seeking solitude. His wife Eleanor, an artist captivated by the house's shadows. They brought with them their young daughter, Sophie. Her laughter, a jarring sound in the oppressive silence. The house watched them, studied them. They began their renovations, stripping away wallpaper, uncovering hidden rooms. Each layer revealed another piece of the puzzle. The house resisted. Floorboards creaked in protest. A cold draft followed them from room to room, a warning. Eleanor, filled with a nervous energy, painted feverishly. Her canvases, once filled with light, grew dark. Twisted figures emerged from the brushstrokes. Daniel, unable to write, found himself plagued by nightmares. The house invaded his sleep. Sophie, however, was drawn to the house. She explored its hidden corners, spoke to unseen friends. Her parents dismissed it as childish imagination. They would learn. The house had a way of making itself known when it was least expected. One night a storm raged. Rain lashed against the windows. The wind howled like a banshee. Power flickered, plunging the house into darkness. Then a scream. Eleanor's scream. Daniel rushed to her side, her eyes wide with terror. "It's here," she whispered. The occurrences escalated. Footsteps in the dead of night, whispers slithering through the ventilation. Objects moved. Doors slammed shut on their own. The house was toying with them, weaving a tapestry of fear. Daniel, his skepticism fading, began to research the house's history. He uncovered newspaper clippings, tales of madness and violence. The house had a taste for blood. It fed on the despair of its inhabitants. He realized the truth. They were not alone. The house grew colder, the air thick with a palpable dread. Eleanor's paintings grew more disturbing, visions of death and decay. Sophie's laughter ceased, replaced by a haunting silence. The house was claiming them, one by one. Sophie, her innocence lost, refused to enter certain rooms. She cried at night, whispering to her parents of the shadows that watched her, of the cold hands that brushed against her cheek. They tried to comfort her, but their words rang hollow. Daniel, desperate, called in paranormal investigators. They arrived with their equipment, their EMF readers spiking, their cameras capturing fleeting shadows. But the house remained aloof, hiding its true nature behind a veil of shadows and fear. The investigators left, their findings inconclusive, but their faces betrayed their fear. They had glimpsed the darkness that lurked within the Blackwood Estate. The house had won. It had driven them away, just like the others. Eleanor, her mind unraveling, began to see things. Visions of past inhabitants haunted her every waking moment. She could no longer distinguish between reality and the phantoms that plagued her. Their faces contorted in pain and rage, their eyes pleading for release. These tormented souls seemed to be trapped in an endless cycle of suffering. They reached out to her from the walls, begging her to leave, but she couldn't. The house had a grip on her, a grip that tightened with every passing day. The house held her captive, its dark energy seeping into her very soul. It whispered to her, promising secrets and power, but at a terrible cost. Daniel, at his wit's end, tried to convince Eleanor to leave. He pleaded, argued, and even threatened, but she refused. She was too far gone. The house had sunk its claws into her soul, and it wasn't about to let go. It fed off her despair, growing stronger with each passing moment. She belonged to it now. Her eyes, once full of life, were now vacant and hollow. She moved like a puppet, controlled by the house's malevolent will. He knew then that he had to get Sophie out. The house's influence was spreading, and he couldn't let it consume their daughter too. He had to save his daughter. Sophie was their last hope, the only light in the encroaching darkness. One night, Daniel packed a bag. He moved quickly, his heart pounding with fear and determination. He took Sophie by the hand. They moved silently, every creak of the floorboards sending chills down their spines. They crept through the darkened house, trying to escape the watchful gaze of the unseen. Every shadow seemed alive, every corner a potential threat. But the house was awake, it knew their intentions. It pulsed with a malevolent energy, determined to keep them within its grasp, and it would not let them leave. The door slammed shut with a finality that echoed through the halls, sealing their fate. As they descended the grand staircase, Daniel heard a noise. It was faint at first, almost imperceptible, but it grew louder with each step he took. A soft, guttural growl coming from the basement door. The sound sent chills down his spine, making the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He slowly opened the door, fear gripping his heart. The creaking of the hinges echoed through the silent house, amplifying his dread. The stench of decay wafted up from the darkness. It was overpowering, a sickly sweet odor that made him gag. He peered into the abyss, his eyes struggling to adjust to the dim light. Shadows danced on the walls, creating grotesque shapes that seemed to move on their own. There, in the flickering light of a single bulb, he saw her. The light cast eerie shadows on her figure, making her appear almost ghostly. Eleanor, her back to him. She stood motionless, as if frozen in time. She was hunched over something, her body swaying rhythmically. The sight was both mesmerizing and horrifying. He called out her name, his voice trembling. She slowly turned, her eyes empty sockets. The sight was more terrifying than anything he had ever imagined. In her hands she clutched a blood-soaked rag. The crimson stains were stark against the pale fabric, and beneath it Daniel saw the unmistakable shape of a tiny hand, Sophie's hand. His heart shattered at the sight. The house had taken his daughter. The realization hit him like a ton of bricks, leaving him breathless, and driven his wife to madness. He screamed. The sound was raw, filled with pain and despair, a primal scream of anguish and rage. It echoed through the house, a testament to his unbearable loss. Daniel, his mind shattered, stumbled back, the weight of his fears pressing down on him, making each step heavier than the last. The basement door slammed shut, plunging him into darkness. The sound echoed, a finality that sent chills down his spine. He pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. His fists ached, but the door remained unmoved, a silent guardian of his prison. He was trapped, alone with the darkness. The silence was deafening, broken only by his ragged breaths and the distant creaks of the old house, and the echoes of his shattered family. Memories of laughter and love now twisted into haunting reminders of what he had lost. He sank to the floor, his back against the cold, unforgiving wood. The chill seeped into his bones, a stark contrast to the warmth he once knew. He could hear it now. The house was alive, every creak, every whisper a testament to its malevolent presence. It breathed around him, its laughter echoing through the ventilation system, mocking him, reminding him of his helplessness. It had won. It had claimed them all. One by one it had taken his family, and now it had come for him. He closed his eyes, resigned to his fate. The fight had left him, replaced by a cold acceptance. He would join the others, the souls that wandered these halls, forever trapped in the house's grip, the souls trapped within the walls of the Blackwood Estate. Their whispers, their cries, a constant reminder of the house's hunger. Their pain, their suffering would become his own. He could feel it already, the weight of their despair pressing down on him. The house had feasted on their despair. It thrived on their misery, growing stronger with each soul it claimed, and now it would feast on his. The darkness closed in, and Daniel knew there was no escape. Years later, the Blackwood Estate still stands, a testament to the darkness that resides within. Local children dare each other to approach, whispering tales of the family that once lived there, their laughter cut short by the chilling silence. The house remains, a monument to tragedy, a reminder that some places are best left undisturbed, for within their walls evil sleeps, waiting for the unwary, waiting to claim its next victims. The cycle continues, the house that hates its inhabitants, forever stained by the blood of the innocent, a place of whispers and shadows, where hope dies and madness reigns. Beware its allure, for the Blackwood Estate claims all who dare enter its embrace.